Hello and welcome back. In today's video, I'm going to be going over part 2 of my Fourth Wing recap. Iron Flame comes out next week on Tuesday, November 7th. I am so excited. I cannot wait. I pre-ordered the audiobook on Audible. I want to be able to listen to it immediately because my copies will not be in until like the 8th or the 9th, I'm sure. I have Iron Flame pre-ordered from Bookmarks, my local bookstore, and I have a special edition of Fourth Wing pre-ordered from Amazon. Hopefully that will be in on the 8th. But let's talk about part 2 of my recap of Fourth Wing. So we left Violet on Threshing Day after she bonded not one, but 2 dragons, Tarn and Andarna. Next couple of chapters, we're sort of fast forwarding through time just a little bit. Things are just continuing at Basgiath as normal. Violet is removed from breakfast duty that she did have because she's a writer now, and the unsavory jobs were given to the unbonded writers. So now she's doing archives duties. And we get to see her kind of in her natural habitat in a big library, and we see her talk to her old friend Jasenia. While she's down there collecting stuff for professors and that sort of thing, she asks Jasenia about the Book of Fables. I think it was called The Fables of the Baron. And Jasenia says, no, I've never heard of that, but I'll go look. And she goes to look, and they do not have a copy of this book. And this is weird because this library, these archives are supposed to have at least one copy of every book in Navarre. Some more just things that sort of happen. We find out that Sawyer is the first of their group to get his signet power. His signet power is metallurgy, being able to manipulate metals. And during this exchange, we also find out that if you don't develop the ability to channel your signet power within about 6 months, you could explode from the buildup of magic. So Violet is not out of the clear yet. And a few days later, we also see one student develop the ability to read minds, and it sort of makes him a little bit crazy. And this is when we meet Professor Carr, who is in charge of kind of teaching the students about their signet powers. And that power is called being an intrinsic, and that is illegal in Navarre. You can't have that power, and so he is immediately like put to death. Carr just snaps his neck. And it's pretty brutal. And what I think is so weird about this is that, like, nobody reacts. Like, Violet's like, holy shit, he just killed that guy. And that was, like, the only reaction. We see Violet she's having, like, this dream conversation with her father. And it's, like, a dream memory. And in this dream memory, Violet says, what if I want to be a writer? And Violet's dad says, that's not your path. You're not like them. And during this dream memory, there is a voice trying to wake Violet up. It's Tarn. And she finally wakes up to find that there are 7 unbonded writers in her room and one person leaving her room who she recognizes, but we don't find out who that is until later. They attack Violet. They try to kill her. Oren gets his hands on her, is like trying to choke her to death, and Darna shows up, and Darna gives Violet the power to stop time for a very small increment, for about 30 seconds. And Andarna is able to stop time, and Zaden has been on his way, and that gives Zaden enough time to get there and everybody. After this happens, Zaden, Violet, and Tarn, and Sigale, and Andarna all have a little conversation about what Andarna actually is. Andarna is a feathertail, and Navarrians don't know much about feathertails because they don't see them very often, and they're not able to study them. And we find out that this is because Andarna is a baby dragon. She's like a little dragon toddler. And the reason that they are not allowed to bond is because they can accidentally give their power to their bonded person, and they aren't able to control it as well, and so it can cause the baby dragons to burn out, which ultimately kills them. So Zaden and Violet agree to keep Andarna's secret for her safety and for the safety of all of the baby dragons that are in Navarre. The next day, at their, morning formation, Zaden accuses Amber Mavis of letting cadets into Violet's room to kill her in her sleep, which is very much against the rules. Dane looks at Violet and is like, this is not true. This can't be true. Amber is not that kind of person. and he demands that Violet show him her memories, and he goes to touch her face, and Violet, rightfully so, says, if you touch my face, you're going to live to regret it. And Taryn is able to share Violet's memory with the people in charge, and excluding the part about Andarna. And Amber Mavis is immediately off with her head. Taryn fire blasts her. Because of all of this, Liam is moved into Violet's wing and is essentially told by Zaden to follow her everywhere. And so this is where we get to meet lovely, wonderful Liam. So a few days later, Liam and Violet are on archives duties, and while they're down there, they're pushing around this cart with these scrolls. One of the scrolls falls off. They briefly see that it says that there have been attacks along the southern border, and Violet and Liam both think that that is a little bit weird, and they expect to hear about it in Battle Brief, but they never do. We also have the infamous scene where Taryn and Sigale forget to close off their bond to Zaden and Violet, and while they have their special dragon time. And we get a wonderful scene between Zaden and Violet where they have a conversation. It gets very heated, and they kiss for the first time. Zaden is very worried about this, and he cuts it off because he doesn't think that it's actually Violet. He thinks that she's being influenced by their dragons. But, you know, the first kiss happens. Some more time passes. They're in January now, and they're doing sparring, and Violet has to face down Jack. Jack finally gets his opportunity to spar against Violet. Violet ultimately comes with a plan. We find out that Jack is allergic to oranges, and Violet has some oranges in her pocket. And ultimately, Violet wins that interaction. But because she told Liam about it beforehand, Zaden decides that Liam is not trustworthy anymore, and Zaden has to take a personal interest in Violet's safety now. The next big thing that happens is squad battle, and I think this is sort of like a big test where they kind of like test the cadets' ability to kind of be in charge of themselves and like do what is asked of them without their leadership. And so they have some sparring matches, and they also have to find, like, the last part of squad battle is to find something that would be very valuable to Navarian enemies. And so Violet and her group come up with the plan to steal a big map from Violet's mom's office that has supply lines, it has outpost locations, all sorts of information. They manage to steal this map and win squad battle. Because they won squad battle, their prize for winning was a trip to a forward outpost that is, you know, currently being used. And when they arrive, Mera is there, and Mera and Violet get a reunion. It's very sweet. And the other exciting thing is that this outpost is not very far from where Rhiannon is from. And so Violet and Rhiannon sneak off to go see Rhiannon's new nephew. They get caught by Mera, and Mera decides to go with them. And Rhiannon gets to see her new nephew, and when they come back, Zaden is there. And it's because Taryn and Sigale cannot be separated for very long. So they're there for a few more days. Mera is sort of going over Battle Brief with the group, and Zaden and Dane are obviously infighting. The girls are fighting, and Mera pulls them out into the hallway and is like, you guys need to get your shit together. While this conversation is going on, they find out that there are Griffin riders that are attacking, and so everybody has to leave. The cadets have to leave because they can't, you know, they're not trained enough, they can't be there. We have another very exciting scene where Zaden kisses Violet again. I'm pretty sure it was just a ploy to get her to stop asking to stay and help long enough for Taryn to get there. Luckily, Mera does make it out of that alive. A little bit later, we find out that Zaden and Taryn have been working together to make a saddle for Taryn so that Violet can ride Taryn without the fear of falling off, and so that Taryn is able to give Violet power so that she can, you know, manifest her signet power. When they get back, Violet says that things are getting weird at Basgiath. Every battle brief is getting more and more redacted. Dane is acting weird. Finally, we see war games. It's sort of like the big end of year type thing, I think. It's basically a big game of capture the flag, but with dragons. And during this, I have an interaction between Jack, Liam, and Violet. Jack manages to knock Liam off of his dragon. Violet uses Andarna's power to stop time in order to catch Liam before he hits the ground. Causes Violet to get super pissed off, and she finally channels her signet power, which is lightning wielding. And we find out that there hasn't been a lightning wielder in more than 100 years in Navarre, and that it's a pretty cool power to have. Things continue to heat up between Zaden and Violet. We see Reunification Day, and this is just a day celebrating when the civil war that they had going on was over, and they have a big party. The king is there, a lot of generals are there, Violet's mom is there. Violet's mom acts like an ass, and we see an interaction between Zaden and Violet on the parapet where Violet says, I don't think I can separate what we've been doing, and I want the opportunity to make this work between us, and Zaden agrees, and it's very romantical and sweet. I think that the last part is also another part of war games. I'm not 100% sure because the capture the flag thing seemed like war games. I'm a little unclear on that. But the final thing that happens in the book is everybody is assembled out front, and they're told that they all have to separate and go to these different outposts. It's pretend war, basically. Zaden gathers his team, which happens to be all kids who have rebellion relics, and he gets his orders to go to an outpost that is outside of the wards. Violet goes with them. They take a break halfway there, and while they're taking a little break, Griffin Riders show up. And this is where we find out that Zaden has been helping the Griffin Riders by giving them weapons, because Venin and Wyvern are a real thing, and they have been threatening the cities that are outside of the wards. The wards that are powered, that protect Navarre, only allow dragon magic within the wards, so Venin cannot come in the wards and do magic. It's been keeping Navarre safe, but everybody who is outside of these wards have been in danger, and Venin are attacking them. Violet is pissed because Violet is still under the assumption that these people attacked her family, killed her brother, and that sort of thing, but Violet goes with them. When they get to the outpost that they're supposed to be at, things are off. There's no one there, and they find a note that says, that they can either stay and protect this outpost and basically be traitors, or they can go to the actual location that their headquarters are supposed to be at. And since there is a horde of Venin coming, they all decide that they have to stay and protect the people. And so a big fight ensues. Liam tragically does not make it through this fight. Violet is a total badass and is like electrocuting them right out of the sky, but she does get hit with a poison sword by one of the Venin, and so she ends up passing out, and we hear Zaden say, I know somewhere we can take her. And so the last chapter of the book is through Zaden's POV, and she wakes up 3 days later, and Darna is way bigger for some reason, and they have been kind of nursing Violet back to health. When Violet wakes up, she is still pretty pissed at Zaden. He kind of leaves the room, lets her have a minute, and when he comes back, they're having a conversation. Someone knocks on the door, and it's Brennan, Violet's brother, who, was supposed to be dead, but he's not. And the last line of the book is, welcome to the revolution. So that was part 2 of Fourth Wing. I cannot wait for the next book to come out. I am so nervous about what is going to happen. I'm so worried. There's been a lot of speculation online about if the real enemies to lovers is not Zaden and Violet, if it's Violet and Dane, and if we've set up a reason for Violet to hate Dane, and this is going to be, I think that this is supposed to be a 5-book series. So that's a lot. That's a lot, especially when the enemies became lovers in the first book. I'm nervous. I'm worried. I really hope this lives up to the hype. And yeah, I'm super excited. If you enjoyed this, let me know. And if there are any other books that you want me to do a recap of, please let me know as well. I will see you in the next video. Bye.